All right, Derek Chisora. What's up?
War Chisora. You have the best British impression of any American I know. I gotta tell you, kudos to you on that. I never tire of hearing it.
Yeah, Josh Buatsi, David Adelaide. Well, let's start with Derek Chisora, who
Uh,
was very smart on his part. He sold this fight as his last dance, as his last dance. Then he had his three brothers in the ring afterwards say, well, actually, let's do another dance. You want to dance with this guy, and that guy? But man, Chisora is always brings the heat. I'll just start real quick by saying when I watch him fight, the highest compliment I can give him is it's an homage to your Joe Frazier's, your Burt Cooper's, who was trained by Joe Frazier. Burt Cooper was, I believe, and he's that old school kind of 1990s, 1970s rugged heavyweight who is, and I mean this in the highest compliment possible, is an awesome gatekeeper. He's a great test to see what does your heavyweight prospect or your heavyweight. He's just a good test to see where do you really stack up in the heavyweight division. And yeah, man, he Razor Ruddock was one of those guys, Burt Cooper, and he's the modern day that.
I would say in the way that the Brits like to characterize people or themselves in the instance of Tyson Fury, he's a fighting man. Derek
Yeah.
is a fighting man through and through. And the truth of it is, he just loves fighting. And the opportunities that are presented him, he'll take them as far as he can take them. And thus far, he's not been able to take them to the heights of the profession, which is a world championship. That has thus far eluded him. And I believe, no matter what he says, like any other competing athlete, a championship is something you want to retire with. So I don't know that he gets there in 50 fights. If there's only one more on the docket for number 50, it's going to be hard to angle him into a title fight. I think he's leaving his options open when he puts those three faces in the ring. Ultimately, though, one more fight has to be the finish of Derek Chisora. I think for all of us who called for him to retire 2 years ago and were clearly wrong about his ability to continue to win fights, we have not yet been proven wrong about the wear and tear and the price he may pay later in life for continuing this long. And that was where my concern came from when I told him to his face 2 years ago that it was time for him to retire. And none of us can tell a man when he has to stop the love and passion that has driven his entire life. However, we are all empathetic. Those of us who have, a decent constitution of character are empathetic about seeing the deterioration of your fellow man. And you know how dangerous a sport this is. So with that said, he's a thrilling guy to watch. And the fact that in number 49, when he was a 2-1 underdog against Wallin, who's not a world beater, but a younger fighter, definitely had prospects ahead of him if he could have gotten past Chisora, to be knocked down twice, not to mention in the last 10 seconds of that fight, a guy who did come to compete, Chisora deserves all the standing ovation he got at the end of that fight. I'm anticipating number 50. I want to see it. I don't want to see number 51 though. And I worry that if number 51 is dangled as a title shot, he might not keep to that promise of hanging it up after 50.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's obviously something I don't wish on any fighter, but I think just being logical about it, the style in which he fights and how many tough fights he's been in, it could catch up to him in an ugly way later on in life. But, that's his cross to bear. And when I compare him to the old school fighters, this is how a lot of the old school fighters were. They fought until they couldn't fight anymore. That used to be the natural order of a fighter's life, unfortunately,
Yeah, the
and
sport retires you. You don't retire from the sport.
absolutely right. And Chisora has chosen to be one of those guys, right? And there is a warrior code to that I do respect that the sport even likes, and so yeah, I respect him for that. Otto Wallin was disappointing in this fight, and kind of like watching old Zab Judah fights when it's like you're being defense first, defense first. You're getting hit anyways. Why don't you let the left hand go? Because it's not like this defensive first approach is getting you out of the way of shots a whole lot. And Wallin would do a lot of things right. He would land his jab, take little half steps back in the center of the ring, and just not let it go. And that's a credit to Chisora, who's making him question his distance control, and he's getting underneath and lunging with shots over the top. That can be difficult to deal with, especially when you're trying to prepare for sharp, straight line type punches. And Chisora is dipping down, ducking his head off the line a little bit, coming over the top. That's tough to deal with, right? Like I said, Joe Frazier,
Listen,
Bert Cooper,
Joe Frazier, yep, that's right. A little George Foreman even.
right?
And I
So
don't believe that Wallin had the confidence that his punching power is going to be able to stop a Chisora from coming in, even if he landed. And he was worried about the counterpunch fairly early. You got hit, cracked pretty good early with one of those seemingly winging shots, and I think it got his attention. There wasn't a lot that Wallin was willing to do that would have put him in harm's way that could have won this fight for him. He decided, I believe, in the first half of the fight that he was maybe going to do just enough to win, and hopefully Derek's gas tank would empty out and he could win on points or get a real lucky shot in there. But you're right. I didn't see a whole bunch of tenacity or vicious intention from Wallin at any point. And maybe that's a credit to Derek Chisora. It's just, they always say who wants it more. I mean, Derek wanted it, and he clearly wanted it more.
yeah, he did. If he's gonna fight number 50, I prefer the Joshua fight because we've seen him fight the other two. We've seen, and that Usyk fight aged extremely well for him. That performance against Usyk is aged extremely well for him. You could argue he made him more uncomfortable than any other heavyweight has. Not that he won as many rounds as Fury or Joshua in their rematches, but he made Usyk more than those two did feel like, oh shit, like this motherfucker is not stopping early in that fight. So
I say if Dillian White gets past Joe Joyce on April 5th, I want to see the rematch of White. Well, I guess the rubber match of White Chisora. That's the fight. That's the one. That's a good British scrap. Dillian White is still, a dangerous fighter. This is no walkover. But I worry that Joshua, just, the style of it, the fact that they're good friends, I just wouldn't like covering that fight. And I would worry that a big right hand or a preponderance of punches from Joshua might damage Chisora for a long time coming. And the style of Dylan makes for a much more exciting fight. One of those guys definitely is going to come through on the night with a thrilling victory, one way or the other. That's really kind of the only fight I want to see. Wilder was proposed. I don't even like that fight. That's not the comeback fight for Wilder. I definitely don't think that Usyk is in the cards, even if we wanted to see it. Daniel Dubois will hurt Derek and embarrass Derek early. We don't want to see that. I'm happy that Dillian White is back. I think this Joe Joyce fight is the perfect fight for him to return. Give Derek time to rest. If he comes through, let's see. Number 50 probably won't be in England, to be honest. Number 50, Chisora White for the true last dance. I don't know what they're going to call that fight.
the last dance for real this time.
Tea time.
Yeah. In parentheses, for real this time.
Yeah, exactly.
But so you brought up Dillian White and Joe Joyce, which will bring me to my final point about Chisora and Wallin. I'm going to be direct with my language. In selling out to Turkey, this is one of the downsides is now said promoter from said country, now that you're left with the scraps. I'll take Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, and Alexander Usyk. Thank you very much. And you could still have Dillian White versus Joe Joyce, two fighters well past their prime. You could have Derek Chisora. You could get the guy who just got knocked out in Riyadh season by Anthony Joshua. The guy that used to sell out your arenas, Anthony Joshua. And you can get the scraps. And I think the United States will have to suffer a similar fate with that. I think if that Haney Garcia doubleheader comes off, that's kind of part of it. Although that's a solid doubleheader. Devin Haney against Jose Ramirez, Ryan and Rolly's an exciting main event. Press conferences are going to be awesome. But it's like You get Ryan and Rolly, and we will do Ryan and Devin, the rematch that really matters. We're gonna do that in Riyadh season, which hey, it is what it is. They gotta serve their agendas and their goals, but that is part of the strings attached to selling out, to forfeiting that, hey, either I want more money or I don't believe in what we can do in the UK or in the United States anymore to turn a big enough profit. We're gonna go ahead and send the A talent in the biggest fights over there. This is part of the blowback. Is now Joshua like greed. That's why Alexander Usyk called Tyson Fury greedy belly, because he's saying we could have already fought in England, but you wanted more money, so now that belly's gonna get bigger, and we're gonna have to wait several more months, and then Usyk beats Fury like he would have beaten him in UK, would have beaten him anywhere at that point in their careers. But that is one of the side effects of taking this money.
I think we might have to zoom out a little bit on the scope, because you have to realize that Dylan White is sitting at the top table with Frank Warren as his promoter, because Frank Warren now has all the heavyweight stable to make a fight like Joyce and White a gatekeeping fight for one guy to be like, all right, you're probably done. I don't care where you are in the world. And the other guy now has prospects to contend in the upper echelons of the heavyweight division, because, yes, that next fight might be a major payday in Riyadh season, in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Or it could be on a fight that happens in London, like Eubank Ben, which London couldn't make happen, which is a massive fight, which doesn't happen without Riyadh season, which is happening in London. But the question just becomes, if, when you say sell out, I mean, every fighter will tell you when they get their back against the wall, they're prize fighters at the end of the day, right? That's everybody's, last line. And to respect that, I have to, because it's true. At the same time, if somebody else wants to pony up more money, or some city wants to pay a site fee, then by all means, those things can be made. But the fact that these promoters are working together, you can get Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn and Oscar De La Hoya and Ben Shalom and all of these guys to now work together, whether it be a fight in London or a fight in Riyadh or a fight in LA or a fight in New York, all on the table. There's been a fight in LA. There's been a massive fight in London. That was Joshua Dubois, the biggest gate London's ever seen. Production crazy.
Great point.
These things just don't happen unless what Riyadh season is doing is being done. And again, I always go back to remembering how much complaining, at least I was doing, about all the fights that weren't being made, and how difficult it was to get promoters to work with each other. And if you could get a promoter to work with another promoter, then the networks would step in and be like, not on my watch. I paid this promoter too much money to let a fighter go on another network. Yeah. All of that shit made for mediocre fights, and every now and then a big major card. So I tip my hat to Riyadh season for letting any fights out of Saudi, to be honest. Because if it was me, everything would be at my house.
It was something I wanted to touch on there. It slipped my mind for a moment. It slipped my mind for a moment.
It's hard, Sean. I get it. It's hard to, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
we all have domestic pride. We want to see shit on our soil. We want American fighters to be fighting in America. British fighters have the same complaints that you've had. Yeah,
I remember now.
Go ahead.
The irony is certainly not lost on me. Like, that these they didn't want to work with each other when they had the freedom to do it, to do the right thing on their own, right? They had the freedom to do that, and they didn't. And everybody complained. You weren't alone. Your complaints resembled that of your average hardcore boxing fan in America, right? So yeah, you're definitely not wrong at all. And the irony is not lost on me that yous all didn't want to work together. Now yous got to work together, right? But now yous got to work together. Now yous all got to kiss the ring. It's not a good thing. That's not a good thing. This is the consequence of your petty bullshit between all of you. Now you got to go overseas and call another man his excellency. You could have.
And each promoter wanting the other promoter to kiss his ring. The reason we didn't get Joshua Wilder when we could have had it is because Eddie wanted the ring kissed and Al Heyman wanted the ring kiss, and nobody was bending the knee. The networks weren't willing to work together. There was, I believe it, there was $100 million in that fight, and the egos stepped in the way. The networks stepped in the way. So if this guy can circumvent all that with a rack, stacks that nobody can deny, listen, man, you got, to your point, Sean, you all had a chance to do it on your own. And yeah, Big Daddy had to come in and give everybody a pacifier. So yes, they're pacified now. And if the result of that is us getting these fights when they should be had, I'm mad, bro. I'm not mad. These
I'm
guys
just
that
saying.
also can step out of this Rubicon at any point if they want to be able to make these fights elsewhere, or they want to put their foot down and say this fight happens in London, this fight happens in New York. They could do that. They don't want to do that because they'd have to take less money. It would just require the fighters or the promoters or the networks to take less money or to step away and be like patriotic about it. I wouldn't hold my breath.
Yeah, no, I know. And I have been said patriot about it, but I don't expect other people to march to the beat of my drum. I'm just saying where I'm coming from, where I'm coming from with it. And I'm
Understood.
just saying, like, that's a consequence for them as much as it is a solution. You know, is you had a chance to do it the right way and you did it, and now you got to call another grown man his excellency and kiss the ring. That's a consequence as much as it is a solution for that, in my opinion. And when we talk about they're giving us the fights that couldn't be done without them, and it's like, well, better be a Bivol couldn't be done because neither one can draw a dime for to exaggerate. And and Fury and Usyk could have been done, but Usyk said it himself. You're greedy. You want more money. So this is good. And
Fury was greedy in London as
yeah,
well. And
yeah.
nobody's getting better BF Bevel an immediate rematch other than Riyadh season.
Right.
And the His Excellency thing, it sounds very, very nails on a chalkboard to an American ear. But just like everyone has these prefixes, Your Honor, if it's a fucking judge, Mr. President, if it's a president, Your
Which nobody
Excellency is
calls the
something
president in
that,
our country, though, because we have the freedom to say, fuck Joe Biden, fuck Donald Trump. As many people
well,
say that as they go, Mr. President Biden, Mr.
well,
President
yes,
Trump.
but people
Right.
in the government call him that. People that are working with the president or hope to certainly show him that
Right.
respect.
Right.
And so, just like you don't have to say His Excellency, the people who want to work with him and are in his country, I would be embarrassed if Americans go to the country and disrespect the culture there, especially if they're getting money and making and working there. You have to, yeah, that's part of it. Yeah, you got to respect the culture that you're in. If I'm seeing a doctor and he wants me to call him Dr. Smith, I'm not gonna be like, well, I fuck with Dr.
Hey,
Greg.
Greg. Hey, Greg.
You
Yeah,
know what
just
I
call
mean?
him Greg. Yeah.
Hey, Greg, you didn't
You don't know
sell a
me like
platinum
that.
record, son. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I get why it sounds crazy to us because it's not something you would call a private citizen. But this guy isn't really a private citizen. He has that title, and it's just like in England, Sir, Idris Elba, or Madam so and so. They knight people still in this country, and they Sir Elton John.
That's
People
why that
say that,
1776 went down. It's like we can't
right?
get jiggy with that. I'm just being funny, but
But yeah, man, I gotta tell you, the guy is doing excellent work. I don't mind calling him His Excellency.
February 22nd card is excellent. I will definitely concede that. But the thing is okay, so we've gotten two undisputed title fights out of Riyadh season, right? And well, not fights, but matchups. Better be Evan Bivol and Fury and Usyk. Man, pump the brakes on this. Oh my God, it's the greatest thing ever, Savior. Let me take you back to 2021 in the States. May of 2021, Charlo fights Castano for all four belts. June of 2021, a month later in Vegas, Jose Ramirez and Josh Taylor fight for all four belts. November of that same year, a month after Fury Wilder 3, by the way, Caleb Plant and Canelo Alvarez fight for all four belts. By May of that next year of 2022, the rematch with Charlo Castano. July of 2023, Crawford Spence. And that's not
How
including
many cards did you just name, though?
named 4 or 5. And I named
Right.
3 in a 6-month span. 3 undisputed title fights in a 6-month span. We get 2 in 12 months, 2 undisputed matchups. It's, oh my God, no one's ever seen this before. He's the savior.
Oh, I thought you were talking about everyone being so excited about this particular card.
Oh yeah, yeah,
on
yeah, yeah. No, no, no,
February
no, no. This
22nd.
card is dope. There's no
Oh,
denying
okay,
that.
because
If you like
that's
boxing,
going
you
to be
like this
hard.
card.
I mean, listen, first of all, because I know people's perception of what's happening is going to go crazy because we just keep touching on the same shit.
Yeah,
But all we're doing is giving you a full view of different perspectives on the climate in boxing, be it in America, England, or Saudi, and all these different promoters. So because I do cover these fights in Saudi and England in person, and I'm less likely to now go to America even to cover any of those fights in person, you have a perspective that I don't have. You have a firsthand accounting that I used to have all the time that we used to share, and now you see it more up close and more consistently than I do, and vice versa out here in the United Kingdom and Saudi. And so it's not me shilling for Riyadh season or you hating on Riyadh season or you shilling for PBC. It's about offering different perspectives and context for what's going on. I believe what's happening on February 22nd is being so touted because it is a collection of fighters now with Shakur Stevenson on the card, Schofield on the card,
Virgil.
Eubank on the card, Ben on the card, Dubois on the card, Beterbiev on the card, from all over the world, all different promoters, all different people who had been assigned to different networks, all on one card where you can arguably say every fight from the first to the main event is damn near a 50-50 fight. And you have two title fights at the top of the card, one of them undisputed, which is an immediate rematch of a controversial decision, which we almost never get, and then a heavyweight title fight. Yes, in one night, seeing those fighters, that collection of fighters on one card with those kind of matchups all the way down the line is something to marvel at. It is like a very unique. I won't say it's never happened in the history of boxing before. I'm not even the greatest historian like that. Somebody could definitely pull up maybe something like this. But in the modern era, that many fighters from that many different promoters from that many different countries with that much on the line that are that closely matched, I don't remember anything like it.
You probably have to go back to Don King's heyday, one of his Night of Champions cards or
Yeah,
Night
maybe
of
the
Rematches.
heavyweight night of heavyweights in New
Yeah,
York, you know.
yeah,
But again, those are all one promoter, all from almost all from one country. Like that's what I mean. It's also just a matter of like getting all these different people together who you would just never imagine seeing on one card before.
right. A promoter in Don King who, no matter how many great cards he put on, did not escape the legitimate concerns and criticisms around him. And that's all I'm doing for your man Turkey Al
Which is
Sheikh.
fair.
You
You
know,
got
yeah,
there's sunlight on everything. You're
yeah,
not trying to hide nothing. Like,
yeah,
all those things are worth discussing. Well, they need to be discussed with a full perspective
yeah.
from all angles. And then every fight fan and everybody who wants to put their dollar down for a pay-per-view or buy a ticket has to decide if this is something they want to buy into or not.
Yeah. And they want to see the fights, and I get that.